I would like to congratulate the Chicago Bears for once again embarrassing themselves on national television. Let's give them a hand. I do not need no formal introduction this week. I'm really pissed. I really cannot express how pissed I am right now. It's been a terrible 24 hours, and guess what? I'm here, and I'm here to do my post-game show. Let's start off first by saying that the Bears got soundly defeated by the LA Rams. All three phases of the team got decimated. They got dominated by this LA Rams football team. Let's just say that. All three phases of this team played terrible. The offense, the defense, and the special teams. Let's start with the offense, shall we? Listen to this. The offense only managed to put up 3 points on the board yesterday. 3 points. And oh, wait a minute. You just heard me say, oh, the Bears, they lost 24-10. No. Want to know where their only touchdown came from? Eddie Jackson, who is a safety on the Bears, which comes from the defensive side of the ball. So technically, that is a defensive touchdown. So really, the score should be 24-3. That's what it should be for the final score. But also, you could also argue and say that, hey, Cameron, the score should really be the score could really be 27-24 Bears. Because if you saw the highlights last night, guess what? The Bears had opportunity after opportunity to put the ball in the end zone, and they did not. Let's go over one example first. It was a fourth down, right? It was a fourth and 5 at the 15-yard line. They had no choice but to go for it. They were already down 14 points. And what happens? Nick Foles doesn't even get a throw off. He gets sacked. He gets sacked for a loss. And guess what? They turned the ball over on that possession. And then there was another touchdown that they could have had on the board had Nick Foles threw a very accurate ball in the end zone. Except he did not. He got bobbled in the air and he got picked off in the end zone. And guess what? Right after that pick, guess what? The Rams scored after that to make it a 21-point game. My point exactly. So really, if you look at it, that's 14 points off the board for the Bears. Oh, wait, but I'm not done. The Bears were on their 3-yard line? They're on their 3-yard line, and Nick Foles, due to the terrible pass protection from that offensive line, oh my God. This offensive line was completely terrible. But let me jump back to Nick Foles. Nick Foles throws a terrible ball down the field. Darnell Mooney was wide open, and guess what? Nick Foles threw it wide left to Darnell Mooney, and guess what? Darnell Mooney was nowhere in range to catch that ball. So guess what? That could have been a 50-yard play, and who knows? I'm not saying that the Bears would have scored a touchdown, but they could have had at least a field goal, and guess what? That is 17 unanswered points in the game. And that's including the defensive touchdown, if you guys want to include the defensive touchdown. Oh my God. You know what? All right. And then moving on to the defense. They played lazy. They played flat-footed. I've never seen this defense play so terrible in my lifetime. I never have. That is completely unacceptable, and you're not winning football games like that. You're letting running backs run past you for 20 yards. For what reason? Guess what? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, their offensive line is good. That is BS. No. You are letting... Okay. All right. They're long for rushing yards. There was one play where they allowed 34 rushing yards on one play. You're telling me that you're supposed to be one of the elite running defenses in the NFL, and you're giving up 34 rushing yards in one play. Now, I understand it happens, but you're not supposed to give up 34 rushing yards to a non-elite running back that's on the Rams. You're not supposed to do that. And this is why I said sign Damon Snacks Harrison. He's a good nose tackle and he knows how to run stop. And what do, Ryan Pace? You don't do that. You don't. Instead, you decide to be cheap and you're saying like, oh, Bilal Nichols, he's good enough. He's good enough. He can stop the run. No, he cannot. He is 6'3" and 295 pounds. What can he do? Nothing. He's not an elite run stopper. He is not an elite pass rusher. So what is he out there? I'm not saying he's a waste of space, but he's not elite. He's not terrible, but he's not elite. I hope y'all get my point exactly. And then the special teams. The special teams. What can I say? Cordero Patterson is running, 7 yards deep in the end zone? What for? Just take the knee and start off at the 25-yard line. Stop making life difficult for yourself. And then the other thing, Ted Ginn Jr. You're making a punter look good in Johnny Hekker. And although Johnny Hekker is a really good punter, right? Really good punter. Best punter in the league, right? You let him put the ball inside the 10. I'm not saying inside the 20. Inside your own 10-yard line 5 times in this game. 5 times. And that is one of the main reasons why the Bears lost, because you were not calling for a fair catch. You were not coming after the football when it was being punted towards you. Like, just think. You need to have more awareness on the football field. That is just terrible. Completely terrible. And then let's go with negative shout-outs. You know what? Let me do that. That's something new that's something new on my show. It's called negative shout-outs. So every time the Bears lose, I'm going to give negative shout-outs. And every time the Bears win, I'll give positive shout-outs. But since they lost today, I am giving negative shout-outs. First one goes to Buster Skrine. Buster Skrine is a nickelback. He is one of the slowest nickelbacks in the league. He's steady being dusted. He's a slot cornerback who's steady being dusted by every other slot wide receiver in the league. So it's just completely terrible. I'm saying move him to second string and put Jalen Johnson up there. Do something. Like, Buster Skrine is not going to work. Or if you're going to keep Buster Skrine out there, disregard the nickel defense. That's all I got to say. Disregard the nickel defense and keep attacking at the 3-4 or the traditional 4-3. That's all you have to do. He gave up. Look, Nick. Let me get this right. Buster Skrine, yeah, he did give up a touchdown catch yesterday. He did. But there were other times where he just got dusted by these slot receivers down the field. And it was just completely terrible. Like I found it unbearable at this point. I can't understand it. Like, why are you not pressing on him? Instead, you're giving up, 5 or 10 yards of wide open space to the receiver? Just not unacceptable, man. You've been in the league for 9 years, and I'm surprised that you still are in the league. I'm surprised that the Bears even picked you up, man. Like, this is just not even acceptable. You have 9 games to turn this around, or I'm just saying that you need to be released. Next, Akeem Hicks. Now, I'm not going to be too hard on Akeem Hicks here. I think there was a couple of terrible penalties called on him, and literally, it's reason why he's on my list is literally because of the penalties committed against him or called against him. Like, there's a few controversial ones, like the hands in the face to the offensive lineman and the supposed illegal hit on the quarterback. I mean, there was just a couple of things that Akeem Hicks, I thought he could have been more disciplined, but still, like, them penalties, you just simply cannot have them in the football game. And them penalties were completely controversial. So, like, I really can't blame him too much on that. And then let's move on next to the offensive line, because, oh, Lord, this offensive line did terrible yesterday. This was the most piss-poor effort I've seen from an offensive line in a long time. In my 11 years of watching football, this is the most piss-poor effort. And the fact of the matter is, this happened on Monday Night Football in front of 10 million viewers across the world. This offensive line was, listen to this statistic. They gave up On 50% of the time, Nick Foles was pressured by this Rams linebacker squad and a defensive lineman. You know what I'm saying? So this pressure 50% of the time, that means half of the time the offensive line is not even really blocking for anybody or blocking for Nick Foles. And we all know that Nick Foles is not a scrambling quarterback. So this is just a completely terrible effort from the offensive line. And then the run game, like they were now opening up holes for the fourth straight week in a row now. Like this is just completely terrible. Like I never seen anything like it. This offensive line had a pretty solid 3 weeks, and in these last 4 weeks, just been flat out terrible. This is unacceptable, and if Ryan Pace, if you're watching this, I suggest you going and draft some good offensive linemen in the draft. Like that should be your number one priority this year. Like right after this season. Next one, Nick Foles. Nick Foles. He was completely under pressure last night. He really couldn't make a lot of good throws down the field. I mean, there was a few of them, but he couldn't make a lot of good throws down the field. And then with him not being a scrambling quarterback, like some of these balls he was throwing, like they were not even near their receivers. All thanks to the pressure of that defense. Like it was just completely terrible. And then Nick Foles, this one pass where I said this before. This one pass where he throws to Darnell Mooney down the sideline for about a good 50-yard pass, it was wide left. So it had no chance of going anywhere. Like, that really could have changed the outcome of the game, and it did not. So Nick Foles really has to improve on his accuracy when under pressure, and he needs to really scramble out the pocket. He's reminding me of a certain player who wore number 6 years ago who played on the Bears. I don't even want to mention his name, but his name is Jay Cutler, and with Nick Foles, he's starting to remind me of Jay Cutler. Like, this is completely terrible. You don't scramble. You don't make accurate throws. And honestly, you're just about one game away before me saying I need to bench. Now, with Ted Ginn Jr., what he simply did was simply allow this punter and Johnny Hekker to punt balls inside their own 10-yard line. Like, it was just completely terrible. Ted Ginn was not even going for any punt returns last night because that ball was taking a bunch of high bounces. This is why you call and wave your hand for a fair catch in a football game for a reason. That's why. And Matt Nagy, the play calling was just absolutely terrible. It was really piss poor. I really just simply did not like it. His play calling of running up the middle is simply not working. Because with this offensive line, this offensive line is the worst in the NFL. Literally the worst. And also with the pass plays and stuff like that, it was just simply not working. We saw a lot of 2-yard gains, incomplete pass, punt. It's the same old thing every time with Matt Nagy, and I don't really think he even learned his lesson this year. I really don't. Now, the last few people I'm gonna call out is the linemen and the linebackers. These guys, what they simply did was, oh Lord, they allowed, before I even get to team stats, like, I just need to go in and pinpoint this out. They allowed 161 rushing yards last night. Completely terrible. You're giving up 13-yard gains and 34-yard gains and 10-yard gains. Like, you're not winning football games if your running defense is not stepping up to the plate. Because, literally, that's not what I saw last night. Their effort was completely lackluster. I really didn't like it. And also the pass coverage, although it was not as bad as a few weeks ago, the pass coverage, like, it still needs to improve with these linebackers. Like, because Danny Trevathan, he's starting to look slow out there, and he's starting to look lost, and that's not a good sign when that's not a good sign for the Bears. Like with Danny Trevathan, you just paid him a huge amount of money to stay here, and he's not doing his job on the pass coverage or run defense. So that's a big area of concern for the Bears. Now, when we're heading to stats, Nick Foles, he threw for 28 for 40, 261 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 66.8 passer rating. With Jared Goff, he threw 23 of 33, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, with a 108 passer rating. Now for rushing, David Montgomery, 14 rushes, 48 yards, 3.4 yards per carry. And then Cordero Patterson, 3 rushes, 1 yard. So you'll see what I'm going to get to with the running attack for this Bears in just a bit. You guys will see. Now for the Rams, Darrell Henderson Jr. had 15 rushes, 64 yards. He had a significant number right there. And you also have Malcolm Brown with 10 rushes, 54 yards, and a touchdown. So, yeah, this running defense, they're not looking big and scary. They're looking soft and just terrible. With the receiving, now going to receiving, Allen Robinson, 4 catches, 70 yards, 4 targets. Cole Kmet, 2 catches, 45 yards, 2 targets. Darnell Mooney, 3 catches, 40 yards, 7 targets. Jimmy Graham, 5 catches, 31 yards, and 6 targets. So the reason why I'm naming targets here is because you only threw the ball to Allen Robinson 4 times in the game, Nick Foles. Just think about that for a moment. You only threw the ball to your rookie tight end, Cole Kmet, two times. Now, Darnell Mooney, I'm going to skip that one. But Jimmy Graham, 5 catches, 31 yards, 6 targets. So those 3 receivers right there, they should be up at around 8 targets or 9 targets per game. You're not throwing them the ball enough down the field. And this is what's causing us to lose. You need to give the ball to your, not star, but your good players. I'm not saying that Darnell Mooney wasn't a good player, but he wasn't great as any means last night. He really wasn't. So that's why you need to go in and just aim for your key wide receivers and tight ends more often. And then for the Rams, we saw that Josh Reynolds had 4 catches, 52 yards, and a touchdown. Johnny Munt, 3 catches, 47 yards. Cooper Kupp, their star wide receiver of the team, 6 catches, 43 yards. And Gerald Everett, 4 catches, 28 yards, and a touchdown. Now for defensive stats of the game, we see Eddie Jackson had 9 tackles, 1 fumble recovery, and a touchdown. That was the only touchdown for the game for the Bears. Roquan Smith had 8 tackles. Khalil Mack, the star of the defense, had 4 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and 1 forced fumble. Akeem Hicks, he really didn't play that good last night. Like he really didn't get a lot of stats for him last night. He only had 3 tackles and a tackle and a half for a loss. Robert Quinn had a tackle for loss, 2 tackles, and 1 forced fumble. And with Robert Quinn, you also paid him a lot of money to come here for Chicago. And he hasn't done his job as of late. Like, this isn't going to cut it. If you're saying that if you're giving Robert Quinn, an $80 million contract, and he's not living up to his worth, then I'm saying you need to release him. Put him on the amnesty waiver right now. Danny Trevathan, another person. I already mentioned him with his production, so I really don't need to get there. But he had 5 tackles last night. No. And then for the Rams, Micah Kiser had 8 tackles. Troy Hill had 7 tackles. Michael Brackers had 7 tackles. Taylor Rapp had 7 tackles and an interception. Jalen Ramsey had 4 tackles and an interception, and Aaron Donald had 3 tackles and 1 sack. He really didn't do too well last night either. I mean, he was just, last night was not really his night. So, this is nothing. This is nothing for Aaron Donald. Like he'll bounce back. Now going to team stats, the Bears had only 14 total first downs compared to the Rams 24. Their third down efficiency, the Bears had 4 out of 14 compared to the Rams 4 out of 13. So both of these teams really could not convert on third down for worth anything. And if on fourth down, the Bears were 1 of 4 compared to the Rams 0 for 0. Rams didn't even really go for it on fourth down. And in total yards, this is lopsided. The Bears had 279 total yards compared to the Rams 371 total yards. And in yards per play, the Bears had 4.6 yards per play compared to the Rams 5.5 yards per play. Passing yards, Bears had 230 passing yards compared to the Rams 210. And then the rushing yards. Oh God, the rushing yards. On 17 attempts, the Bears only had 49 rushing yards. So Matt Nagy emphasized in running the football, but you only run the football 17 times. And you make Nick Foles throw 40 times. You get what I'm saying? Do you guys get what I'm saying? You are making Nick Foles throw 40 times in a game, and the whole concept of running the football is trying to open up the pass game. And that's what they did not do last night. Instead, Matt Nagy once again gave up on the running game. And this is going to come back to bite him pretty soon. And then with penalties, oh, wait a minute, no. 161 rushing yards for the Rams. No. That's unacceptable. You're saying that this rushing defense is elite? No, it's not. You're not elite if you're giving up over 160 rushing yards in a game. That's not happening. Like you're letting the Rams running back look like an Emmitt Smith or Barry Sanders out there with those type of numbers. Like it was just terrible. And then now moving on into penalties. The Bears committed 6 penalties committed for 46 yards compared to the Rams 4 penalties committed for 46 yards. So really the Bears played undisciplined yesterday. And Akeem Hicks had, I believe, 3 penalties yesterday. So it was not a lot of discipline on the football field yesterday. And it really showed. Now concluding my video, I'm really not happy. I don't even know what to say. But I want you guys to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I'll see y'all later.